What if I told you that a wooden box filled with $15 worth of ordinary sand could heat your entire cabin through the coldest winter nights, using nothing but 2 hours of sunlight a day? Sounds impossible, right? Well, it is not. In fact, it is already happening in Finland, where an entire town has ditched fossil fuels for this exact technology. So why has almost nobody in North America heard about it? Why are energy companies pretending it doesn't exist? Stick with me, because what you're about to learn could literally save you thousands of dollars every single winter. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why the heating industry would prefer you never find out. Let's start with something that sounds like science fiction, but isn't. In the small Finnish town of Kankaanpää, a company called Polar Night Energy switched on the world's first commercial sand battery back in 2022. It's a steel container, about 4 meters wide, filled with 100 tons of low-grade builder's sand. That's it. No lithium, no rare earth metals, no toxic chemicals, just sand. And that humble pile of grains can store 8 megawatt hours of thermal energy and hold temperatures up to 600 degrees Celsius for months at a time. Engineers at Tampere University, who helped develop the project, confirm the system loses less than 10% of its heat over an entire season. Compare that to a Tesla Powerwall that costs $15,000 and degrades every year, and you start to see why this quiet Finnish experiment has people in renewable energy circles whispering that something big is happening. But here's where it gets interesting for regular folks like you and me. You don't need 100 tons of sand or a $1 million industrial setup. The same physics works at any scale. On Reddit, in subs like R Off-Grid and R Homestead, you'll find dozens of threads where people have built small versions in their cabins, garages, and tiny homes for under $100. One user from northern Maine documented his build last winter. He used a plywood box lined with rigid foam insulation, filled it with about 400 pounds of play sand from a hardware store, and ran a coil of copper pipe through the middle connected to a small solar thermal collector on his roof. His total cost? Around $87. His result? He kept a 400 square foot cabin at 65 degrees Fahrenheit through nights that dropped to -20, even after 3 cloudy days in a row. The comments under his post exploded. People couldn't believe a kid's sandbox material was outperforming their $3,000 pellet stoves. So why does this work so well? Sand has what physicists call high specific heat capacity, especially when it's dense and dry. It absorbs energy slowly, but more importantly, it releases that energy slowly too. While water boils away at 100 degrees, sand can sit there at 500, 600, even 700 degrees, radiating warmth for hours on end. A study published by the International Renewable Energy Agency in 2023 confirmed that silica sand has one of the best cost-to-storage ratios of any material on Earth, beating molten salt, ceramic bricks, and even concrete in real-world tests. And unlike batteries, sand doesn't catch fire, doesn't leak, doesn't explode, and doesn't lose capacity over time. The finished prototype is expected to last over 50 years with virtually no maintenance. 50 years. Try getting that out of a propane furnace. Now you might be wondering, if this is so good, why isn't it everywhere? Why isn't your local hardware store selling sand battery kits next to the snow shovels? This is where the story gets uncomfortable. The North American heating industry generates over $200 billion annually. Natural gas utilities, propane distributors, electric heating manufacturers, they all depend on you needing them every single month. A homeowner who installs a $100 sand battery and pairs it with a small solar panel essentially disconnects from their revenue stream forever. There's a reason you've seen 10,000 commercials for smart thermostats and zero for thermal sand storage. Smart thermostats still need the gas to flow, sand batteries don't. On X, energy researcher Dr. Hannah Ritchie pointed out last year that thermal storage technologies receive less than 2% of the public funding that lithium battery research receives, despite being cheaper, safer, and longer lasting for heating applications. 2%. That's not an oversight. That's a choice. Suppression isn't just financial, it's cultural. Building codes in many parts of the United States make it surprisingly difficult to install non-conventional heating systems without expensive permits and inspections. A homesteader in Vermont posted a thread last December describing how his county refused to certify his sand battery setup because it didn't fit any existing category in their regulations. Meanwhile, Finland, Germany, and Denmark are racing to scale this technology up to municipal levels. The town of Pornainen in Finland is currently building a 1 megawatt sand battery that will heat the entire municipality, replacing oil heating for over 500 buildings. Their projected savings? Around 70% on annual heating costs. 70% for an entire town. So what would it actually take to build one yourself? Here's the honest breakdown based on what real DIYers are reporting. You need an insulated container, which can be as simple as a wooden box lined with 2 inches of polyiso foam. You need dry, clean sand, ideally silica-based, which costs about $5 per 50-pound bag at any home improvement store. You need a heat input, which can be electrical resistance wire powered by solar panels or a copper coil connected to a solar thermal collector or even a wood stove pipe routed through the sand. And you need a heat output, usually a fan blowing air across the hot sand and into your living space, or another set of pipes carrying water to radiators. The whole system, scaled for a small cabin or off-grid tiny home, can be built in a weekend for under $150. People on YouTube have been quietly posting build videos for years, and the comments are full of testimonials from users in Alaska, Montana, Quebec, and Norway saying the same thing. It works. It actually works. But before you grab a shovel, there's something you need to understand. The energy industry isn't going to stop you from building one. They're going to do something smarter. They're going to make sure you never hear about it in the first place. Mainstream media coverage of sand batteries has been minimal. Most articles that do appear focus on the massive industrial finished projects, framing the technology as something only governments and corporations can deploy, never mentioning that the same principles work in your backyard for the price of a dinner out. That framing is deliberate. Keep it big, keep it distant, keep it irrelevant to the average person. Meanwhile, your heating bill keeps climbing every winter, and you keep believing there's no alternative. Here's the truth they don't want you sitting with. Heat is the easiest form of energy to store. It always has been. Our ancestors knew this. Roman bathhouses, Korean ondol floors, Russian masonry stoves, all of them used thermal mass to capture and slowly release heat over hours and days. The sand battery isn't a futuristic invention. It's a rediscovery of physics we abandoned because someone realized you could sell the same heat over and over again if you delivered it through a pipeline. So if you take one thing away from this video, let it be this. The next time someone tells you that going off-grid is too expensive, too complicated, or too unrealistic, remember that $15 of sand and a weekend of work might be all that stands between you and energy independence. Look up the builds, read the threads, watch the experiments, and ask yourself who really benefits when you keep paying that bill every month. Because the answer to that question is the same answer it has always been, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Consider what happened in the small Finnish town of Kankaanpää in the summer of 2022. A company called Polar Night Energy switched on what the world's media called the first commercial sand battery, an 8 megawatt-hour unit built inside a steel silo about 4 meters wide and 7 meters tall, filled with around 100 tons of low-grade builder's sand. The system charges using surplus electricity from wind and solar, heating the sand to around 500 degrees Celsius, and then discharges that heat into the local district heating network in Vatajankoski. The cost was modest by industrial standards. The efficiency was remarkable. And the two engineers behind it, Markku Jalonen and Tommi Aronen, were not hedge fund darlings or Silicon Valley founders. They were two guys who met at Tampere University and decided that the obvious answer to seasonal energy storage was sitting under everyone's feet. When journalists asked why no one had done this sooner, Jalonen gave an answer that should have ended the conversation. He said the technology was simple enough that it could have been built decades ago. Decades. Sit with that word for a moment. Every winter for the last 40 years, you have been paying for heat that could have been stored for pennies in a box of sand in your basement. The historical record backs him up. In 1983, researchers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology published studies on packed bed thermal storage using sand and gravel as the storage medium, concluding that round-trip efficiencies above 80% were achievable with basic insulation. In 1979, during the second oil shock, the United States Department of Energy funded the Solar Energy Research Institute, now known as NREL, to investigate exactly this kind of low-cost thermal storage for residential applications. The reports exist. You can pull them up on the DOE's own archive. They describe systems remarkably similar to what hobbyists are building today, sized for single-family homes, projected to cut heating costs by 60 to 90% depending on climate. Then, Reagan took office. The solar panels came off the White House roof in 1986, and federal funding for distributed thermal storage research dropped by over 80% within 5 years. The research did not fail. The research was abandoned. There is a difference, and the difference is the entire story. Ask yourself what changed between 1979 and 1986. The physics did not change. Sand still stored heat the same way. What changed was the political will to let ordinary households opt out of the energy market. Deregulation was coming. The natural gas industry was preparing for an enormous expansion. Utility companies were lobbying state legislatures to lock in rate structures that would guarantee returns for shareholders for the next half-century. A technology that let homeowners store summer sunshine for winter warmth was not just inconvenient to that future, it was lethal to it. So the research papers got filed away, the prototypes got dismantled, and an entire generation of engineers got steered toward problems that were profitable to solve rather than problems that were useful to solve. Now consider the stakes for you personally this winter. The average American household spends between $1,200 and $2,800 per year on heating, depending on region and fuel type. In the Northeast, where heating oil still dominates older homes, that number can climb past $3,500 in a cold year. Over a 30-year mortgage, that is somewhere between $36,000 and $105,000 flowing out of your pocket and into someone else's quarterly earnings report. A backyard sand battery, even a generously sized one with a small fan, ducting, a thermostat, and proper mineral wool insulation, comes in under $300 in materials for most builders. The payback period, even in mild climates, is typically a single winter. After that, every kilowatt hour of heat it delivers is functionally free, drawn from solar panels you may already own or from cheap overnight grid electricity at off-peak rates that can run as low as 4 cents per kilowatt hour in many regions. The counter-argument the industry will offer when pressed is safety. They will tell you that sand at 200 degrees Celsius is dangerous, that homeowners cannot be trusted with thermal mass, that improper insulation could cause fires or burns. It is a strange argument coming from an industry that pipes pressurized methane directly into your kitchen and lights it on fire 3 times a day. A properly built sand battery contained in a steel drum, wrapped in non-combustible mineral wool rated to 1,000 degrees Celsius, and sheathed in cement board is objectively safer than the gas furnace already sitting in your basement. It has no flame. It has no combustion byproducts. It produces no carbon monoxide. It cannot explode. The worst failure mode is that it slowly cools down and stops working, at which point you open it up, check the heating element, and turn it back on. The other argument is aesthetics, and this one is almost laughable. They will say a steel drum in your utility room looks ugly, as if a gas meter, a tangle of copper pipes, and a 30-year-old furnace rusting in the corner is some triumph of interior design. The truth is that a sand battery can be built into a bench, hidden inside a closet, buried under a greenhouse floor, or installed in a detached shed. Builders on the forums have made them look like wood stoves, like radiators, like nothing at all. The form follows whatever you want it to follow because the core technology is just an insulated box of hot sand